Thank you, Street Leverage, for giving me the opportunity to speak with all of you. So this presentation is going to be related to my research at grad school. It's going to be related to my experiences of America and Black interpreters. And I wanted to interact with Black deaf users and interpreters as well. So, and this isn't just for them though, this is for everyone. And I think it's important. So I want to thank all the interpreters of all kinds and colors who came in to look at this research. So I wanted to talk about what the story is that's missing from our profession and what's missing from interpreting instruction. So 2 days ago, I was going to a conference this week, and I was trying to get the numbers for the for this conference, and I hope that you are paying attention, right? Because 80% of interpreters are white, meaning that the other 12% of interpreters are of color. So here's our 12%. Let's hear it for them. Oh, I hate it when they do this. I can't see your hands very well with this angle. Staff, it's not only hearing staff, it's hearing, there's all kinds of things. If you're a coda, in our community, we have many different types of people. Now I want to focus on the numbers because I don't want to just throw a bunch of numbers at you. I know you see, wow, 88% white, like wow, that's a really big imbalance, and I wonder why that is. So that 12%, we know that number has been the same for a long time now, but the exact number has obviously, had a little bit of it changes, but the percentages have pretty much been the same for, years now. So I didn't want to just give you a discussion on numbers, but I wanted to talk about the impact and the impact on interpreters of color and the impact to users of color, users of ASL of color, and to all of you white allies. And I hope you all will become allies after this, if you're not already. So let's start with the story. I first got joined and involved with this research. Well, I want to warn you first. This might feel kind of uncomfortable for some of you, okay? And that uncomfortable feeling, try to self-reflect on it, and we can discuss that more. This is the reason this kind of discussion is tough, because we often have this fear related to how we're going to discuss the type of topic. And that fear is normal. And we fear like how you will perceive me, as well as interpreters, hearing people, interpreters of color, and newly joined RAD board members. They're all going to take this perception of who I am, because this topic is not easy, and it can pretty easily devolve into conflict. So it's important to discuss this. So reading that story, I noticed that the experiences of the interpreter of color, understand that experience happened after a job. So what's the point? Is that 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 interpreter of color had that same kind of impression before or after work. Um, and they experienced that impression worse after work. And so it's important that we discuss that and discuss that impact on that interpreter of color. Maybe that's the reason the number hasn't increased. So let's think about that. And also, what's the response? The emotional response right there is normal too. Often, I think I would feel that way too, where I would hate to be labeled as the black person or the deaf person or what have you. So I noticed their emotional response and that confusion and fear and anger that was all included in that response because of that systematic oppression and it's related to the oh boy increase when they respond to jobs. It's why we don't discuss that in interpreting programs. Why we don't discuss that in workshops. Why we want to increase interpreters of color in the profession is that we need to do whatever we can to act on that. This story, I don't want you to leave and feel, oh, that poor interpreter of color. I don't want that. I don't want pity. I want action. That's the goal. Because this story was shared during a workshop because the story was not shared in an ITP. I think the interpreter was not prepared for that aspect of the profession and being faced for an 88% white profession and how that 88% can become allies. So preparation and how we can help interpreters of color. So how many people are white allies? It's hard to say, but I think by working together we can be better prepared. So what's the impact of taking away the power of oppression? So in my research, I gathered about 116 American Black interpreters in my research. 72% had experienced not underlying, but direct oppression while working. Not before, not after, but while they were working. And that was from users and non-users alike. So in that focus group that I had, there were some concerns too. So what were those concerns? Well, this profession, we discuss a lot about our understanding of language and how we have to first understand the culture and how that impacts all the underlying things and how that can impact the language. But most Black deaf people who are involved with my focus group, they felt like interpreters didn't understand their culture. So what does that mean? What does that mean for users of color? And what does that mean for employees who are trying to figure out how to match up with interpreters instead of us matching up with them? So that focus group is focused on Black interpreters of color, and it felt like everyone kind of understand each other as kind of relaxed environment because of that. We felt like the skill and the culture was both there. So with the profession of interpreters of color, oh, I missed that. For uh, over 63% of interpreters in my study felt like they had a teacher that failed to understand their culture and their issues, or who taught about culture skills. Uh, 86% of people who wanted to get involved in my research um, went through an ITP. And that's again 63, 64% felt like the teacher just didn't really understand their culture. Um, and many of them felt like there was no discussion at all about their culture in their ITP programs. Others told me that there was discussion about different cultures and how they can relate to deaf and hearing only, how they have a deaf tendency and a hearing tendencies. And it was a very binary, but deaf and hearing both can be can face of different backgrounds, of different colors, can codas. There's all kinds of different identities that have that um, intersectionality. So we're not thinking about culture more than deaf or hearing. We're brushing away some of our some of what they are by just reducing it down to this binary. So that example with interpreters who was walking along, they were going to their car. We have to take the whole big picture into the effect, because I mean we can't take the whole big picture into the effect. And we can't change the whole world, but we can change ourselves. So this story is for everyone here, or especially that 88% of people that are non-interpreters of color. And we'll talk about those allyship skills, because first we use the word ally like a badge, but what does it really mean? Um, so I tried to summarize it into a couple different skills that allies have. So one is kind of like full avoidance. So some are skilled with seeing things that are present happening, but they tend to not really get involved and don't act on trying to prevent that oppression. And there are other allies. Then there's allyship, which they see oppression in their job or in the world, and they actually do something about it. Develop culture skills. Many people they don't know what that means. Um, there are many out there who have the framework for culture skills, um, but it's not necessarily included with this presentation because it's short. But they can contact me and I can give you more information. But the point of that is that when you work with interpreters of color, um, try to connect with their community of color and how they see themselves as an interpreter of color, and try to get them involved with your program if you're involved in an ITP, because there are many people out there who are natural cultural interpreters, and they want to get involved with teaching. So grab the time to use them for your mentoring. There are some equality groups out there. Um, that you can use to get involved and tell your story and get involved in your teaching programs. There's a lot of articles and books um, that was uh, uh, you can. Oh boy, yeah, I gotta. So discuss race only, or try to get the whole picture of who they are. If you're not getting the whole picture, because that can sometimes, if you're not getting the whole picture of who someone is, that can sometimes look like tokenism. And the last skill that you should invest in as an interpreter of color um, is your social capital. So let's talk about that. Like, what is social capital? But it's related to your sort of friendship and good relationships with people. Um, if you're not in contact with the community and building a lot of social capital, uh, because sometimes if your relationships are weak with the rest of the community, um, and you're kind of stuck in the same clique, or what have you, that's weak social capital. So your workshops, your programs, your name, your reputation, um, there are many different organizations of color to connect with, um, and to check out for yourself, and try to look around for yourself as well, because that's the way for you to get that 88% allyship to be better. Oh boy, yeah, okay, not my finest.